You wanted baseball? We've got baseball from South Korea. Live baseball on ESPN, the game you love. But there are some differences. We'll get to those with our guest in just a few minutes. Suffice it to say for now that among those differences, there is the way most players choose to express their enthusiasm. Bat flipping is a much bigger part of the game in Korea, which is not to say that in Major League Baseball, bats are always treated respectfully. Here's Keith Olbermann. Olbermann reporting. As we said earlier, in South Korea, bat flipping has long been not only accepted, but embraced. For more, we're joined by Mina Kimes, who 4 years ago went to Korea for a deep dive on bat flipping in Korean baseball. Mina, the game was introduced in Korea by an American, but popularized by the Japanese when they were occupiers. Bat flipping isn't part of the game in Japan, so how did it take hold in Korea?
So the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization, was created in the early 1980s. And at first there was no bat flipping. But then what I found in my reporting, Jeremy, was a player named Yang Jun-hyuk was the first one to flip his bat. He was an excellent slugger. And it became sort of a means for Koreans to not only celebrate and have fun, but also distinguish their game, make it independent, make it its own thing. And I think that's why it's taken off there. It's part of the culture of baseball, along with many other traditions they've created along the way.
So why is it okay in South Korea, in the KBO, to flip bats when it's so much more controversial, obviously, here, and presumably, if it happened at all, it would be controversial in Japan, too?
Yeah, I think the question is, why is it not okay here, right? When I spoke with Korean ball players, they told me that for the most part, a lot of them didn't even know it was taboo or that it was something that pitchers should be mad about until American players came to Korea and told them. And I think that sort of sheds light on how artificial some of the outrage is here and the fact that it breaks the unwritten rules in the first place. The pitchers there are not offended. They don't see it as cause for retribution. And in fact, there's not really a culture of retribution in Korean baseball, or there wasn't when I did my reporting there, in part because nobody ever created it, and also it's a smaller league with 10 teams, and a lot of the players know each other really well.
But it's interesting, Mina, in your story from 4 years ago, you spoke to players, Korean players who had returned from playing in the U.S., and they had a whole new perspective on bat flipping. Could you tell us what their thoughts were?
Yeah. Which again shows how much of it is a learned behavior, right? Or the fact that it's offensive is learned. So I spoke with Chan-ho Park, who is, of course, legendary pitcher who played for the Dodgers and came to the U.S. and had a very long career here. And he told me when he went back, he was offended, right? When he saw Korean players celebrating and flipping their bats, and he told them, don't, it's disrespectful, because that was the culture he had been immersed in the United States for so long. And I think, it shows sort of the effect that globalization can have on the game, how norms get transmitted back and forth depending on, what becomes accepted, what becomes established in a certain league, and it's something that he brought back with him.
What are the other ways that it's different when you go to a ball game in Korea?
It's just so much fun. It feels almost like a college football game in the United States. Like it's a lot younger, Jeremy. First of all, I'll start there. You see tons of fans in their 20s, kids celebrating, dancing, drinking beer. The dancing, I cannot stress, is a very important part of watching. The players have their own songs and dances, and that's a shame that we're not able to see that right now, even though we are getting baseball from watching KBO. Without fans in the audience, you don't get to see what a raucous atmosphere it is there, and hopefully it's something we'll get to see again at some point.
We'd all like to see more dancing in baseball. Mina Kimes, thanks so much for joining us here in OTLN Sports Center. And you can see KBO games on ESPN2 live every day this week, 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time with re-airs at 3 p.m. and then again at 2:30 a.m.